God, for all of those who weren't able to be here this evening, all those in our book of prayers, and all those in our hearts and minds. And in Jesus' name, may you bless and open our meeting today. And so be it. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear me, Luiz?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, he said yes, but we're not here. Can't hear him. Okay. Let me just read your biography, your bio real quick, and then we'll test the audio again. So for those of you who are not familiar with Luiz Lima, allow me to introduce you to him. Luiz began his journey in Spiritism in 1990. As a serious researcher on the scientific aspect of Spiritism, Luiz has been facilitating the studies of how to bridge science and Spiritism in both languages, Portuguese and English. Mr. Lima is a renowned lecturer in the Spiritist movement and participates in local and national seminars and events all year round. Luiz Lima holds a degree in electronic engineering and he works in the computer network industry. So friends, without further ado, as we continue to try and mitigate our audio challenges, today our speaker Luiz Lima will be talking about the 3 revelations. Luiz, let's see if we have audio for you.
Okay, can you guys hear me? Just let me know.
Nope, it looks like we still don't have the audio, so
no audio?
hold on a second. Do keep speaking just so because we did have it.
Okay, so testing the audio. Testing audio, testing. There are 3 revelations, by the way.
Still working on getting the audio here.
No audio? Not yet? Still testing audio. Still testing.
Oh, I'm almost hearing. No. Don't pay attention to that, what you see on the screen.
Yeah, no, I only see myself on the screen. So testing audio.
We hear you, but it's low. Hold on. We're still working on it.
Okay. Testing volume. Testing connection. Okay. Testing.
Well, folks, what did we expect, right? We're going to be discussing such a topic as the 3 revelations. We're going to have things happen where they don't want these things to be revealed.
Yeah.
It's natural.
Yeah. But we're going to get to it.
Yeah. This is all part of the show, folks.
It is.
This is all part of the build-up.
It is. It all is all, preset. So.
Oh, say something, Luiz.
Saying something. Testing.
Oh, yay!
Yay!
Okay. We have audio.
Like I said, we prevailed.
You prevailed. Okay, Luiz, I hand off the floor to you now.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you guys for joining us here for this topic, the 3 revelations. We're going to bring some slides over on the screen. And we are going to start, before we even actually jump in, we are going to start by discussing the word revelation, because it has too many different meanings and we have to all be on the same page. Revelation here is not, for example, in science, when somebody discovers the cure for a certain disease. So science comes out and reveals what they found out. That's not that revelation. That is a discovery, because it depends on things that happened before. Science researches and, they go ahead and find something else, then they reveal the whole conclusion. That's not the revelation we're talking about. That is discovery. Revelation, in the sense that we need to understand today, is a disclosure of something that is completely unknown. So it has to be something that is brought to us by independent of the knowledge that we had prior to the time of the revelation. This is what revelation means to us here on this talk. So when we say three revelations, we say there are three spiritual revelations, or 3 points in time where these revelations are brought in and presented to us. And it's a very interesting topic. Now we're going to start with the first revelation. The first revelation takes place with Moses in Mount Sinai, 1300 BCE. So let's just think about the circumstances. So what happens here? In easy words, he goes up the mountain. He receives some sort of information, let's just put it this way for now, on a tablet. He brings it down, and he has to present that to his people. So those are the 10 Commandments. That's the first revelation, when that takes place. Now, what makes it unique is, can you imagine if you can, mentally go back in time, or at least based on what we hear in history, these people are not like us in 2025. The conditions are very poor. The level of understanding, honesty, and any sort of virtue, they were not there. They were not there. These are post-cavemen, if you will. So, you're on those days, if you were talking to somebody and for some reason you disagree and the argument gets heated, the easiest thing to do is to get the sword, run through the other person's body, and that's it, done. Said and done, let's talk to somebody else. And I'll have the same thing done to me. So, killing is something common in those days before the first revelation. So can you just imagine when Moses comes down the mountain and says, those are the 10 new laws of God. One of them, by the way, is don't kill. You cannot kill, not anymore. Can you imagine what goes in the head of these people? They revolt. The first thing they say is, how come I can't kill? If I just killed 3 people this morning, and I do this every day or maybe every week or so, what prevents me from killing? You see, this is one commandment. Moses had to do with this kind of argument for all 10. So what he decided to do, what he was spiritually instructed to do is, you need to bring disciplinary laws. So in order to sustain those 10 commandments, he brings over 613 disciplinary laws. And he just simply imposes on those people. You see, there's no way that Moses is going to come down the mountain and say, listen, let's get together here to discuss these 10 things that I got here. Not a chance. So he has to come in using a more modern word, as a dictator, in the sense that we use the word today, to impose things over. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. So he comes with this general idea of an imposition. The people they simply had to accept one way or another. And the disciplinary laws were there to help sustain the values that the first revelation, the 10 Commandments, contained. So there's going to be a tremendous learning curve from day one, and it goes over and over and over until these people are more refined in their understanding of the moral laws. And there's going to be a point, like 1300 years after this, where Jesus shows up. And that happens in Judea. About the year 30 AD, that's when Jesus starts teaching his messages. And that is considered a second revelation. Why is that a revelation? Because what Jesus brings is not a consequence of any previous studies. It's not a discovery. If it had never showed up, we wouldn't know any of that. So it is a revelation in that sense. He brings things from the spirit world, from the higher realms, that we would have no chance of knowing without somebody like him coming in and tell us this is what it is. Now, Jesus changes the tone. Those 613 laws, disciplinary laws, they were in place for like 1400 years. So, it was time enough for at least part of the population to grasp and understand them. So Jesus comes, presents his message, second revelation, but he changes the tone. He no longer needs to impose anything. So he changes his tone to something that is more like he comes as this counselor. So the general idea behind the second revelation is counseling. For example, the adulterous woman, he's going to tell her, nobody, they all left, all the guys left. I do not condemn you, but, I'm going to give you a counsel. I'm counseling you. Don't do this again. He does not threaten her. He does not tell her you go to hell or something like that. No, it's counseling. He's a counselor in the very sense of the word. So he changes the tone from imposition and fear and all of that to counseling. So he comes as this great friend, this great counselor. This is 30 AD. Then there's going to be a point in time. We're going to go through this in more details. I'm just presenting the three revelations. So there's going to be a point in time where we need more than this. Things had been imposed on us. Things had been, we received counseling from, our great friend, great brother. Now we need more than that. We need something different. That's something different. That's something more advanced. Let's just put it this way, more developed, comes with the third revelation, Spiritism. You see, I'm not listing the third revelation coming from Allan Kardec, because the information does not come from him. Information comes from the spirit world. He just compiles the information. So I'm not using his name here. I'm using the general name for the Spiritism. So in Paris 1855, the third revelation comes in place. And interestingly, the tone changes again. You see, Spiritism does not prevent anybody from doing anything. It doesn't condemn anybody for doing anything. It doesn't say, this is absolutely right, this is absolutely wrong. No, it's even more than a counselor. Because a counselor can tell you, if I were you, I wouldn't do this. For example, first revelation, don't kill, period. Imposition. Second revelation, don't kill. But if I were you, I wouldn't kill. Third revelation, now you got an explanation. Don't kill. If I were you, I wouldn't kill. Because if you kill, there are going to be consequences. So these are three different layers of teachings. And that's why we call them the three revelations. And they are sitting on different levels of understanding and knowledge. We cannot, for example, try to understand Spiritism if we don't understand what Jesus brought, for example. What was his message, what he was trying to convey to the population, to all of us, actually. So the Spiritism is going to explain. You see, if I just tell you, don't do this, straight out of my face, don't do this, is one thing. If I tell you, listen, don't do this, because if you do, this is going to happen, you're more likely to follow that when you know the explanation, when you know what's behind it. Telling you don't do this, it might simply cause revolt. And but now I'm going to do it. So the third revelation changes the tone to something much more advanced, which is knowing why. Now, there's a full-blown connection between the first and second revelation and second and third. They are all interconnected. These things didn't show up as an accident. We don't have three accidents here. It's been orchestrated all up above in the spiritual plane. So let's take a look at how this thing happens, how this transition takes place, especially from the second to the third revelation. In the old days of the Roman Empire, okay, Rome and all the emperors, they were trying to expand the land that they were conquering. So they were conquering land and peoples, trying to just expand the whole empire. And they did. They did. So when we look at the map of the Roman Empire today, it's incredible the amount of land and resources they had. But by the year 63 before Jesus, by the year 63 before Jesus, two things that matter a lot to our study had happened. First is, by then, they had conquered the Greeks. Now, the Greeks, and later on, the Hebrews. So by the year 63 BC, that would be approximately 90 years before Jesus, the Roman Empire, or the Romans, had conquered the Greeks and the Hebrew. Now, one grabs the other, or conquers the other, those who are now submitted to the new commands, they bring in their culture with them. So they didn't leave Greece. The Hebrews didn't leave Judea. They were still there with their culture, their, habits and so on that. So what kind of culture did the Greeks have? The culture of philosophy. The great philosophers of the planet, the world, the humanity, they are all from Greece. From Socrates and even before, through a bunch of Greek philosophers. What is philosophy? Is ask until you get all the answers that you need. So philosophy is based on literally questions and answers. For example, I ask you something, you reply to me, now I got a question number 2 for you. You give me the second answer, now I got a question number 3. You give me the third answer and it goes on and on and on. That's philosophy. That's what's behind philosophy. Ask to know as much as you can. Because knowledge is, the value of life is in knowledge. That's the Greeks. So Romans conquered the Greeks, but that's in now. That now belongs inside the Roman Empire. On the other hand, the Hebrews are conquered, and what do they bring? They don't bring philosophy. They bring something different. They bring theology. What is theology? Is the belief that, God and only God is responsible for everything, and I don't have to move a finger. Everything happens in a snap of fingers, just like that. Because God decided to do, God will do, God has done. So this theology gets into the Roman Empire, because now the Hebrews belong into that Roman Empire. So now we have two completely opposite things. Philosophy brought in by the Greeks and theology brought in by the Hebrews. And the Romans had their own their own belief system. So once they conquered these two peoples, Greeks and Hebrews, philosophy continues and theology continues. The Romans did not take that away. They did not end it. But they added a third leg, which is paganism. That's what the Romans were all about. So now we have three things, all happening at the same time throughout the empire. So we had philosophy, paganism, and theology. And then Jesus comes along to present us with the second revelation. And he does his work, teaches everything he knows. We know the history. And then once he's gone, once he's discarnate, what happens is shortly after that, philosophy dies. Paganism dies after about 200, 220 years. So after Jesus, the only thing that stays is theology. Under the control of a group of people called church. So the church now is ahead of humanity. Let's just put it this way, because it's not a very strong statement. It is this way. the church is ahead of humanity. And the church comes from the theological leg of the Roman Empire. So theology dominates for 16, 1700 years until around the year 1750, a movement in modern day France starts with a group of philosophers. They just didn't understand why people would follow theology, which is something very dogmatic. Theology is like this: God said, it happens. God, lightning came because God wanted. That's it. Everything happens in a snap of fingers, and we don't have any control over it. That's theology at its best. By 1750, or a little bit before that, these philosophers in France starts disseminating throughout the population the idea that we have a brain. We have a physical brain here, right here inside the head. It must be good for something. We must use that to think, to ask questions. We cannot ask a single question to the church because everything is dogma, everything is dogmatic. I cannot ask, about evolution. I cannot ask about certain things. The answers don't come. So they start propagating this idea of we have brains. Let's start asking questions. So this thing really works and starts to, to bug the church a little bit. The church is now bothered because what happens here in 1750, we were able, through the Age of Enlightenment, that's what it's called, to bring philosophy back into the equation. So now, after the Age of Enlightenment in 1750, and so, which, by the way, it's going to have a heavy influence on the French Revolution of 1789. But we get out of the Age of Enlightenment with no longer theology, but theology plus philosophy. Philosophy is back in the game. And then shortly after, another thing starts happening, which is the Industrial Revolution, where we started thinking. If we think, we are not afraid to ask questions. So instead of, putting our minds on something else, we can say, what if we do this certain machine to make us, accomplish this easier? What if we have a different equipment that can help us do things? That's what the Industrial Revolution brings in its very core. So the Industrial Revolution had to have philosophy back in the game before you would flourish. After the Industrial Revolution, which did not kill philosophy, did not kill theology, so these things are still alive, but it brings a third element, and that third element is science. That's what the Industrial Revolution is a scientific revolution. And now I'm going to build machines and things, and from there on to this day, as we know, it's a non-stop. So we get out of the Industrial Revolution with these three legs, or three aspects: philosophy, science, and theology. Now, theology is now a little bit different than before, but still, it's a connection to God. It's how we connect to God, which we now call religion. So we get out of the Industrial Revolution with three things happening all at the same time: philosophy, science, and religion. Very interesting, because now Spiritism is ready to flourish. Spiritism is exactly that: philosophy, science, and religion. We would not be able to have Spiritism if philosophy was not back in the game. We would not be able to have Spiritism before the Industrial Revolution. So our philosophy book, where our philosophy of life is laid, is right here on the Spirit's book. And where's the information coming from to the Spirit's book? The information does not come from Allan Kardec. The information comes from the spirit world. Spirits that are on the other side of life, that know and have a different vision compared to our vision, and they can give us a lot more information that we were not able to find if it wasn't for them. This is a revelation. This is the definition of revelation. Third revelation. Now, we have a book of science also. Our book of science is the medium's book. And why do I say it's a book of science? Because Allan Kardec used to write this book, he used the same scientific methodology that was created within the core of the Industrial Revolution, where things had to be done in a certain way. With logic, we would need to be able to repeat things. There's a whole set of things that define that we got a method now. And that's why it was so successful, the Industrial Revolution. Kardec uses the very same method. So the medium's book is based on this scientific methodology. And our third book, the three initial books, is the religion book, which is the book that has to do with our connection and how we do things, our connection with God and how we do things, and that is the Gospel according to Spiritism. And where is the information coming from? Well, it comes from the moral of reference. You see, you can have philosophy without a moral of reference. For example, philosophy of life. Anything that you do, just put your heart in it and do your best. That's fine. It's a philosophy of life. Now, if it's becoming very difficult, I can just take people out of the way by eliminating them. So there's no moral, no ethics. That's not what this is. It's exactly the other way around. We have a philosophy of life, but we have a moral of reference that we should not break. That moral of reference is entirely detailed in the Gospel according to Spiritism. So, now we have the arrival of Spiritism depending on these three things happening. It wasn't like accident. Nobody, threw dice and it came about. No. Allan Kardec, of course, he was a very advanced morally and intellectual spirit, and he was able to do all this work. But the pieces had to be in place before he was able to bring everything that he brought to us. So, now we have the three revelations. Now, it's interesting that we already saw that we have three layers here. They are not the same thing. We have a layer of an imposition, we have a layer of counseling, and we have a layer of explanations. So it would be nice if we could, just like do an interview with these three ones responsible for bringing the three revelations. Can you imagine if you give them three chairs right there where you are? Moses sit on the left, Jesus on the center, Kardec on the right. Just sitting there, we're going to ask them questions, the same question, to see what their answers are. It would be nice. Well, there's no reason why we can't do this now. So let's do it. Let's ask them questions. Philosophy, questions and answers. So first question that we are going to ask them, all three. You guys brought these laws, right? Whom are these laws for? Whom are these laws for? And Moses is going to say, well, that's for the Hebrews. Jesus is going to say, well, that's for everyone. And Kardec, Spiritism represented here by Kardec, is going to say, that's for the entire creation. Can you feel the three layers, the difference in the answers to the same question? All right, let's keep going here. Let's ask him a question number 2. how long are these laws valid for? Right? So you brought these things to us. How long are they valid for? 3 years, 50 years, 2 centuries? Moses is going to say, that's for life. You know, when you die, that's it. End of story. Jesus is going to say, forever. And Spiritism is going to say, they are eternal. Let's think about this a little bit. When Moses says for life, what exactly does it mean for life 1400 years ago for those guys, for those people? It means until the day that you die. And that stops right there. When Jesus says forever, what does he mean exactly? He was trying to teach us, and the apostles, ask all the time, forever. When I say something forever, it depends how you understand. You can understand which is the same as for life that Moses answers, meaning if you die, that's it, no longer valid. Or forever, you die, but the thing continues. That's what Jesus is trying to say. There's more than, the last day on earth. And Kardec expands even more, because the answer from Moses and the answer from Jesus is from this point on. The answer that Spiritism gives us is, it's already been there since the beginning of times. It wasn't made for you especially when you were born. It's been there already for all this time. Do you feel the difference in the answers here? Let's go for one more question. What is the purpose of these laws? Why did you come here and brought these things to us? What is the purpose? Moses, obedience to God. I brought this thing here so we obey God. Okay. Jesus, what is the purpose of these laws? Counseling. These laws are here as these great counselor to help you. A counselor is not somebody that tells you bad things so things go wrong for you. No. It's somebody that is on your side, not against you. So these laws are to help you. And Kardec, what is the purpose of these laws? Liberation and enlightenment. What exactly is that? Liberation means I know I'm in control. I know exactly what this is here for, what these laws are here for. And if I know, I can grow from there. That's enlightenment. Because now I have an explanation. So I can feel this, in my heart. Oh my God, I know this thing now, and I'm going to grow from here instead of fear what's coming. And let's go for question number 4. What ideas do these laws express? So in general, what are you trying to tell us here? Moses, force and fear. Remember the imposition, God, punitive God. Fear God. Jesus, what ideas do these laws express? Faith and love. Completely different than force and fear. Answering the same question. Spiritism. What ideas do these laws express? Faith and love, yes. However, faith with reasoning. And love, yes, but unconditional love. You see the 3 layers of answers? So we go from fear and force to faith and faith with reasoning and unconditional love. Completely different. Question number 5. What attitude should we have before these laws? What attitude should we have before these laws? Well, Moses, submission. That's it. Submission. Don't ask, don't say a thing, just submission. Jesus, what attitude should we have? Action. You have to do something. It's more than submission. You have to do something. You know the law. Use the law in your favor to be a better person, to do better things, to help others, and so and so. Yeah? The great teaching that Jesus brought is love and charity. So move. In Spiritism, what attitude should I have? Well, action, yes. However, with responsibility. It's not just action. Oh yeah, let's do it. No, there are, you have to consider moral standards, ethics. So action, yes, with responsibility. You do something that goes against the law, there will be consequences, and they're not going to be fun. Question number 6, how to interpret these revelations, not the law itself, but the revelation, what you guys brought. How should we interpret this? Moses, how come this is the law of God? That's it, law of God. Jesus, this is how we practice the law of God. So instead of just telling me that this is the law of God, I'm going to tell you, but I'm going to show you. And that's exactly what he did. He practiced in front of us. In Spiritism, how do we interpret these revelations? Well, we practice the law of God. However, we have to comprehend it. So this is how we comprehend and practice the law of God. So when I do things, I do because I understand, not because I'm being told to. I understand why. I understand, the consequences. So it's a whole different set of, it puts us on a whole different spiritual and emotional environment. Question number 7. How would you name these laws? So you have to summarize. How would you name? Moses, it's the law of justice. That's it, law of justice. Jesus, law of love. Spiritism, oh, it's a lot more than that. It's the law of justice, love, and charity. You see how much wider this is? How much more amplitude Spiritism brings into our minds, our hearts. And let's go for our last question here. Where are these laws written? Moses, in stone. These laws are carved in stone. Jesus, in your hearts. Parenthesis. Depending on your interpretation at the time. Heart could be an organ, a physical organ in your body formed of cells, atoms, in matter in general. If you consider heart to be this, when you die, it's no longer valid because your physical heart will not function after the last day on earth. However, if you understand this as heart, the spiritual essence of the being, for those who understand that, when Jesus says, these laws are written in your heart, so that means, when I die, they are still there. For those who understand, or who understood at the time what he was saying. In Spiritism, where are these laws written? In our conscience, which is even more wider than in our hearts. Because you see, all these answers, these more deeper answers that Spiritism bring us, there was a time that we couldn't understand any of that. Remember, To understand the Spiritist philosophy, the Spiritism teachings and answers, we had to have the Industrial Revolution, we had to have past the age of Enlightenment, and we had to have past the, adoration for God. Otherwise, it would not make sense. We wouldn't have a spirit's book being born. So things were orchestrated in the higher realms. Well, I want to end by doing a quick exercise. Although I'm not physically there, but we can still do it. I can still give you seconds to just reflect upon it. So what I have here is the those three who brought the revelations, and 4 color schemes. Black means before the first revelation. Red means after the first, before the second. Yellow means after the second, before the third. And green means after the third. So the exercise here is about our understanding of this. How does it benefit me? Where am I in all of this? So let's say somebody comes to you and say, I am in favor of death penalty. What color do you think this person is? Black. Because the first revelation says, don't kill. So if you're proposing killing, you have not understood or even comprehended the first revelation. So you are living 4,000 years ago, spiritually. That complicates things because the planet evolves. So those people are gonna be the ones left behind. They better catch up to a more updated understanding of the religious thoughts. So if you subscribe to death penalty, you're living 4,000 years ago. Here's another one. Let's say that somebody tells somebody else this: you will pay for what you've done to me. Okay, so you will pay for what you've done to me. What color do you think this is? You see, death is not being proposed here. So it's not black. Red means you understood Moses, but you didn't really follow or understood Jesus. So if the person is saying you will pay for what you've done, that's proposing evil, bad things to somebody else. So that is red. Jesus would never, ever say to a person, oh yeah, you're going to see what's going to happen to you, what you did to me. No chance. So this is a red statement. Here's another one. Let's say you're driving out on, say, I-95 or something, and then somebody starts, hitting the horn really hard and passes you and make jokes at you and signs at you. And you say, well, I wish you'd crash your car right ahead. What color is this statement? What color does this statement belong to? You see, it's the same as before, the other one. You're still proposing bad things for somebody. You still wish bad things. You're still on the evil side of things. This is all hypothetical, right? Nobody says that to anybody. It's just hypothetical, right? But if you were true, that would be a red statement. Because you're proposing evil things. You think Jesus would ever say this to somebody? No. So here's another statement. I can't forgive him. I'm not able to forgive him. Okay, that changes a little bit because you have to forgive. You are just not able to. You're maybe working on it, but you have to forgive. So you got past Jesus. You are at least on yellow, but you're not on green because forgiveness didn't come yet. So this is a yellow statement. And here's the last one so we can close our talk tonight. If I tell you I am trying to become a better person, that's a clear green statement where you're responsible for what you do. Just responsibility right there. So you're responsible for what you do. You're trying to, catch up with whatever you have to. Each one is on a different stage, is a different level of evolution. But, person who tells us that, I'm trying to become a better person, they know. They already know. They're green. Now, becoming a perfect person, that's a different story. That's a whole different story. But you're working on it. You're on the green path. So this exercise here might be silly or foolish a little bit, but it's just to tell us where we are. These are simple things that happen every day. We see and say these things and hear these things every day. No wonder why humanity is not on the green. Well, I wanted to thank you for joining me tonight. Thanks so much for listening to me, having me. I'll be available here for questions, comments, suggestions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Luiz. Can someone get the light for me real quick? All right, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. So everyone's saying, yay, they can see you. Yay. Awesome. Wonderful. So, first and foremost, thank you so much, Luiz, for a wonderful and enlightening talk.
You're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Thank you so much for the wonderful talk. And I would like to open up for some questions,
Sure.
either online and or in person. Okay. We have one question from Alba.
Hello, Luis. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Alba here. Yeah. Thank you so very much. Such an enlightening presentation and very didactic. Thank you for the colors and the graphics. As we progress as humanity, right? Moses came when we were ready. Jesus came when we were ready. Spiritism came when we were ready as a humanity in progress. As we move to the new level, do you think it is necessary for us for a new revelation, for a fourth revelation?
Well, if you think about one of the statements in Spiritism, it tells us about something which is perfection, where you reach the goal. That is what perfection is. So the goal is already at sight if you subscribe to Spiritism. Of course, it's going to take several lives and so on and so on. So, but we're already talking about getting to the end of it, getting to perfection. So I don't think we need more than this. What we need is first to get out of the black. We're still living in the black. Our society still carries a lot of the things that are contrary to the first commandment. Then we need to understand that Jesus does not condemn anybody. He's counseling. So let's listen to what he's saying, and then Spiritism gives us the elements so we can look at Jesus' message and say, okay, now it makes sense to me, and I'm going to go this path. I'm going to abandon this path here, and I'm going to go this way here. So by Spiritism, by mentioning to us reaching the goal, I think it closes all. Now it's up to us to, just be responsible and take it from here.
Great question and fantastic response. Anyone else? Paula.
Hello?
Hi.
I'm always amazed this works. Thank you for your talk. It was really well organized, and I appreciated all the threads that you wove throughout everything and the make believe conversations. I just want to follow up on your describing the people during the time of Moses and was curious how you would describe the people during the time of Jesus.
Okay, the people in the time of Moses, they were, I think I used this term in my talk, post-caveman. So very still barbarian, nothing matters. Let's just kill, let's just full destruction. At the time of Jesus, it wasn't so much of that. We had, although it was far away from being perfect, of course, but at least we had layers in our societies or in those societies in those days that would organize things. For example, in Judaism itself, we had the Sadducees, we had the Pharisees, we had the scribes. That defines the level that we are with your knowledge. Of course, there were, Pharisees were doing wrong things, Sadducees also, but it's an attempt. It's an attempt. It's not what it meant at the time, but what it meant when it was created. It was an attempt to organize the society in such a way that, we don't go back to 1400 years prior to that, which is the time Moses came. So it was a more organized society, much more than before. That's how I see it.
Did you hear Daniel's question?
No, I didn't.
Oh, no.
I didn't.
Nice.
I was waiting for.
Okay, sorry. I think I was mute here. Can you hear now? No, I was mute here.
I do, yeah.
So, no, thank you so much. I'm going to try to summarize because it was a long question. So, so I'm just asking, like, when we analyze the level that we are in terms of planet Earth, don't you agree that we have people that transitate in these three levels of black to green, in the depends of the situation that in some time of our lives, like we have people that is still in the black side, other that is already in the green, but the majority of us in the planet level is still like in that yellow, green, red states. Don't you agree with that statement?
Yes, I do. And this is, we did this in a very generic form. But for example, if you go only honesty, for example. So people who are not honest are behind, who are honest are. However, you can be a very dishonest people and very intelligent, for example, and very caring, for example, for your family, loved ones, you do charity work. So you see, these are different things, different aspects we would have to do to get to classify each one of us where we are. We would have to look at each one of these aspects. You know, his aspect honesty, his tolerance intolerance, his patient impatient. Here's peace and war. Here's love and hate. We would have to do that. So the way we brought this is more like an awareness instead of a deep study. So it takes a general look at things. But yes, we are in certain of these things, we are in the red, in certain we are in the black, in certain we are yellow. So we are mixing. But as a great majority, yes, I think we are in between red and yellow.
All right. Well, Luiz, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure and a blessing when we get a chance to have you with us. Apologies for the tech issues. That comes with the territory, right?
Yeah.
But we'll be in touch. We'll
Sure.
reach out after here. We're going to do our final prayer and visualization here. But thank you once again on behalf of the Spirit Society of Baltimore for being here, for sharing this beautiful talk with us. It is what a blessing is all I can say.
Thank you.
So with that, I'm going to ask someone just to get the light for me. And we will cue up the music. And we will be able to tune our minds once again. Remembering our Master Jesus. Recalling all the amazing teachings and lessons. But most importantly, the love that he bestowed upon all who crossed his path. Even now, he sends us this warm embrace, these healing vibrations to one and all. Dear God, may we be open to receive these blessings, knowing that we are worthy children of God, destined for joy and happiness, for plenitude. May we take steps in the direction to better ourselves, armed with courage, humility, and all the virtues. With a happy heart, every day we are able to wake up and are blessed with another day of loving, of learning, and of growing. We thank you, dear God, dear Spirit benefactors, for blessing us with the technology to be able to have our friend and brother, Luiz Lima, with us, although far away, and yet still be able to hear the blessed words of this gospel. Dear God, we pray not just for us and for those connected to us, but globally for our planet, for all of our brothers and sisters across cultures and lands. We pray that more and more our souls may be united in brotherhood and sisterhood with a universal love. Reminding ourselves yet again that we are children of God, And you call to us every day to be better than we were before, embracing us always with your love. We thank you, dear God, our spirit benefactors, and you, our dear Jesus. And so be it.